Hello, dear friends, welcome back. In this video, I'll be presenting to you a case of my complication of posterior capsular rete. This was a case which I judged to be nuclear sclerosis grade 3 based upon the good retroillumination, and I started with the capsular excis without staining. As you can see, the size of the capsular excis was around 5 millimeter, which I thought at this point was okay for this case. And then I went ahead with hydrodissection, and in between the decompression of the bag was also done. And I started with the nucleus management. In my left hand is Patwardhan chopper 1.5 millimeter, and my preferred technique is half trench and chop. So I did a deep trench 70 to 80% depth, and then I started with the chopping with the high vacuum. And you can see that I'm able to achieve a complete chop and separation of the posterior plate. Then I went ahead with the chopping of the first heminucleus, and you can notice that the Sinsky on my left hand is going deeper for the multi-level chopping. This is my third chop. Keep a watch on the chopping maneuvers, and you can see that I am able to have three complete pieces. And now the second heminucleus division is started. Now here the first chop is complete, and now the last chop which I have attempted. Here in this case I was not able to get a full division, so I left it at that and I started with the quadrant removal. In the beginning I judged the nuclear sclerosis grade 3, but here I realized that it is at least nuclear sclerosis grade 4. So I injected a high viscosity viscoelastic, and then I started with the quadrant removal. In the quadrant removal, smaller Sinsky was used, and the pieces which were well separated, the followability was good, and I was able to emulsify those pieces easily. Some pieces which were attached in the center, they were easily separated using the Sinsky. Overall, the quadrant removal process was uneventful, and you can see now this is the last piece. Here the vacuum and the settings were decreased. Now keep a watch on the capsules. I generally do retroillumination during the last piece, and you can see that there is a line which is appearing on the left side. And I realized this, and in fact, I must admit that I was surprised to see this line. To analyze this, we need to now rewind the case. And for this, I went ahead and analyzed this case. And this is my analysis. That during this chop, the third chop, my Patwardhan chopper that I'm using the left hand is gone too much into the periphery, and this has actually torn the anterior capsular margin. And in the next chop, you can notice, see very carefully, keep watching the anterior chamber, and this, my dear friends, is the extension of the anterior capsular tear to the posterior capsule. This sudden jerk that you noticed. But however, the anterior hyaloid and the remained intact, and there was no vitreous prolapse. So there was cortex remaining, and therefore I decided to do the dry aspiration of the cortex. So let us see how I manage this case. For the dry aspiration, I used the aspiration probe of the bimanual system without injecting the irrigation. Now you have to understand that dry aspiration is a very slow process. It required me equal time of whole of the management on one side and the dry aspiration on the other side. It requires lot of patience because we have to maintain the chamber during the dry aspiration. Because the whole purpose of dry aspiration is to maintain the anterior hyaloid and to avoid the prolapse of the vitreous. We have to be especially careful in this area, in the PC rent area, that we do not aspirate any capsule or the vitreous. Another method of dry aspiration could be the Simcoes or also the bigger bore cannula attached to the syringe. And in this case, thankfully, the anterior hyaloid remained intact and there was no vitreous prolapse till the end. The last piece of the cortex was removed passively using the visco expression. Now, after this, it was very clear that the anterior capsule had torn, and at that point it had extended posteriorly. So I decided to inject a 3-piece IOL into the sulcus. I injected the IOL. Before that, I enlarged the incision slightly, and then, as in every case of posterior capsular end, I injected the lens first into the anterior chamber, and then with control, I dialed it into the sulcus. It is important to ensure that the end of the haptics are not lying into the posterior capsular rent area. Next, I injected diluted triamcinolone to ensure no vitreous in the anterior chamber. Then passive removal of the viscoelastic was done using the irrigation cannula of the bimanual system. And in the end, pilocarpine was injected to ensure the proper centration of the lens. So friends, my most important learning from this case was to ensure the staining of the anterior capsule in cases of denser cataracts, even in the case of good retroillumination, because we want to ensure that we don't touch the anterior capsule with our chopper during chopping maneuvers. Thank you for watching this video, and for more such videos, please subscribe to the channel.